Hello guys and welcome back. So in this lecture we are going to fix some bugs and create our infinite ground. If you want to download the complete game project, then you can always go to my Patreon page. There you can find the complete project which you can download it. It is 100% commented and more projects are coming on my Patreon page which you can download. If you know, our enemies spawner script spawns our enemies, but sometimes two consecutive enemies are spawned on the same spot, and this is not what we want. So go to enemy spawner. So here we will create a private int and we called it last spawn pose, and this will store the reference of our last spawn position index, and then in our spawn police car we are getting a random spawn index. So what we are going to do, we are going to check while our last spawn pose is equal to r, we are going to keep getting our random index, and then here after we have spawned our police car, we are going to set our last spawn position is equal to r, and this way our consecutive cars won't be spawning on a same position. And the next thing is we need to create an infinite ground. So let's save the script and go back to the editor, and here right click and create a new C# script and let's call it infinite ground. Now double click on it to open. Okay, so the first thing we need reference to our renderer, so we'll create a private renderer and we will call this ground renderer, and we will make it a serialized field because it is a private, and then we will create a private float and we will call this parallax speed, and we will set it to 10 by default, and we are going to set it to serialized field as well. And then we need reference to our player, so we'll create a private game object player variable where we will store our player reference, and a float variables offset x and offset y, and this will be used for our parallax effects. Now we don't need start, so in update we are going to check if we have our player, so we'll just check if player variable is equal to null, that means we don't have player reference, so we are going to get reference to our player, so we'll just say player is equal to game object dot find object with a tag, and we know our player game object has a tag of player, and we then just return. And then here at down we will just check if player is not equal to null, then we are going to call our scroll background method. Now let's create a scroll background method, so we'll create a private void scroll background. Now our scroll background will take a float scroll speed and renderer reference, and here we will set our offset x is equal to transform dot position dot x divided by our parallax speed, and our offset y is equal to transform dot position dot z divided by our parallax speed. And then we will set our renderer dot material dot set texture offset, and we are going to set the texture offset of our main text, so we'll type main text, and it will be new vector to offset x comma offset y, and here we are going to give reference, so our scroll speed will be our player dot get component, and it will be player controller, and we need reference to our player speed, that will be dot speed, and we are going to reference our ground renderer as a renderer. Now right now we don't have this speed variable, so if we go to our player controller, you can see our speed float is private, so we are going to create a getter for it, so we'll just create a public float speed, and we'll just set get return speed. And let's go back to our script, infinity ground. Okay, now we can scroll our main texture. We also want our ground to follow our player, so we need to create a method void movement, and in the movement we'll just create a float pose x is equal to our player dot transform dot position dot x, and a float pose z is equal to player dot transform dot position dot z. And then we are going to set the transform of our game object. So transform dot position is equal to new vector3, and it will be x pose x. Our y will be our transform dot position dot y. We are not going to change it, and our z will be pose z. And we are going to call our movement method in our void fixed update, and we are first going to check if player is equal to null. That means player variable is empty, then we are going to return, and we are not going to call the below code. And else our player is not equal to null, we are just going to call our movement method. So if I save the script and go back to editor, let's create a new empty game object, reset its transform, call it ground, and drag the plain game object as a child of it. Now select ground and drag infinity ground script on it. We have this renderer field, so just drag plane to it, and let's click on play, and you see our player is moving, as well as you see here our ground is also moving. So in this way you can create a infinite type of ground for your game. So thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, then do share and subscribe to this channel. So thank you and see you.